What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to do an FTCommentary episode 7, talking about the April 27th edition of Monday Night Raw. Something I do want to mention regarding SmackDown, just like in general, my commentaries on those. I will only be doing those if there's something major to talk about. I'll just be honest. The reason why I didn't do one this week, there was about one thing on that show that I thought was interesting, which was the Fatal Influence debut. That just SmackDown in general, man. There's not much to talk about with that. So if I'm gonna make a video about SmackDown, it's probably gonna be just one topic, rather than 4 topics I only kind of care about. Such as, like I said, if I did one this week, it would have been about the whole Fatal Influence debut. But that's sidetracked. I'm getting sidetracked. Today we talk about Raw. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. This is a case kind of opposite, where there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about that I find interesting. So let's get into it. First thing I'm going to talk about is the Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker promo. I think this was really solid. For someone like Braun Breaker, I'm not even trying to sound rude here, but I think originally, I guess before 2026, I was a big fan of his in-ring work. I still am, but I think his mic work was not amazing. This, I thought, was really solid from both of them. I'm not the biggest fan of Seth Rollins on the mic. I think he's it's too, I don't know how to describe it, but like his laugh, specifically, that stuff, that's a little too much for me. I don't know. This, though, I thought was solid from both of them. I think Braun Breaker mimicking Seth Rollins, that was really funny. Seth Rollins basically saying, you're not the best in your own family. You're only the second best in your own family. Braun Breaker basically saying he's the next big superstar on the roster. Seth Rollins talking about when they had a match in NXT a few years ago. Kind of going back to that history. This entire thing was to set up both of them at Backlash, and they did make that official. I think Braun Breaker wins that, by the way. I think there's no reason for Seth Rollins to win that. This entire thing is going to be Braun Breaker getting put over, and then probably getting put into the main event scene. But I think for 2 people that I don't really enjoy on the mic, I think this was actually really solid. Next thing I'm going to talk about is more so the Io Sky and Asuka storyline. The segment that they were doing was Becky Lynch doing an open challenge for the Women's Intercontinental Championship, and Io Sky accepted the challenge. They had a pretty solid match. I actually enjoyed it a lot. Io Sky is probably the best wrestler on that roster. One of the best, definitely on the women's side. So she can probably have a fucking good match with a goddamn broom. But it ended with Asuka costing Io the match. Basically having Io be the replacement for Kairi Sane, which during this, when Asuka was beating up Io Sky, there were "We Want Kairi" chants, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But this set up Io Sky and Asuka at Backlash, which, by the way, will probably be a really good match. I am interested to see how they do this, because once again, this entire storyline is built off Kairi Sane, and she's not there. So I wonder what they're going to do with that. I'm pretty sure they had a vignette for Asuka during this. But yeah, I want to talk about the "We Want Kairi" chants and that entire, movement online. I'm completely confused by that. Here's the thing. They were not using Kairi Sane well. They just weren't. She basically wrestled every week and probably lost. She was just booked terribly on main roster ever since coming back in 2023, I think it was, Crown Jewel. And why would you want her to come back just to get booked bad again? Why would you want that? I feel like it would be honestly better if, here's the thing, Kairi Sane is really good. Let her go to Stardom. Let her go to any other, Marigold, any of those other promotions, to let her actually wrestle how she wants to wrestle. Let her have those really good matches that y'all want. Let her get booked properly and how y'all think she should be booked. I feel like that would just make more sense. Why would you want her to come back just to get booked the exact same way? They did the whole We Want Truth thing a whole year ago. Look where that went. I was going to make a whole video about that. Whole R-Truth situation. Because that was a whole thing. Here's the thing, if they bring back Kairi Sane because of fan movement, I'll guarantee you, they ain't going to do anything with her. And they'll probably flex on fucking Unreal, because that's what they'll do with that. I saw a meme talking about Triple H rehiring Kairi Sane for Unreal, because that's a thing too. They might do that just because of that show, because the entire point of that show is basically just making fun of how stupid the fans are, quote unquote. But whatever. Like I said, I can make a whole video about Unreal and that entire situation. But yeah, Asuka and Io Sky will be really good, and I'm curious on how they're gonna do it. Next thing I'm gonna talk about is the Joe Hendry concert. I thought this was pretty cool. Here's the thing. Going into this, I was actually kind of interested in how the crowd was going to react to this, because he's been on main roster before, and the crowd really liked it. So I was kind of interested to see if they would still enjoy him, because, on NXT, I'll just be honest, they've basically been flanderizing him the entire time. He has been funny comedy character. I don't think he's done a concert. Actually, he did last week. But back in say TNA, he would do those concerts every week. They kind of stopped doing that in NXT, and kind of just made him a generic guy, honestly, doing the same stuff every week, to where it kind of got, I'm not gonna say boring, but I don't know what the word would be. But anyways, this was cool. Crowd liked it. Basically did a song about Logan Paul. He confirmed that he had signed to Raw in this, and he said he was singing about how Logan Paul should be fired, and crowd liked it. Yeah, they were singing with it, I'm pretty sure. Logan Paul came out after this, I guess during this. Logan Paul and Austin Theory went on to beat up on Joe Hendry, and then the Street Profits came out, took out Logan Paul and Austin Theory, threw him out of the ring. Joe Hendry then rebounded off the ropes, did a fucking Lambo leap type of move. I don't know what that's called. I'm pretty sure it has a name. But I'm gonna call it that because I'm calling that the Lambo leap from now on, because that's exactly what that is. And the crowd liked it. It was good. For how much the internet hates comedy in wrestling, you can have a comedy segment every once in a while, and it works. I enjoyed this. Next thing I'm going to talk about is Obafemi and Grayson Waller, and the post-match after that. This was basically a squash match. Grayson Waller backstage earlier in the show was saying he wanted an opportunity, and then they set up Obafemi and Grayson Waller for later on in the show. Oba squashed him, but in the promo afterwards, Oba said that he was going to do a open challenge to basically anybody. I assume it's going to be a weekly thing. He might have confirmed that. I don't know. But here's my question about this: who's going to beat it? Who's going to beat Obafemi? Because if you do Obafemi having squash matches every week, it's going to get stale. You want to see, especially with how much momentum Oba has after the Brock Lesnar match at Mania, I feel like you should put him in a storyline. I think this is kind of I'm not going to say a bad decision, but an interesting one. Once again, who beats it? Because they've showed Oba as this dominant force, and he's probably the biggest guy on that roster. Who's going to I guess, convincingly step up and beat him. Maybe Braun Breaker, Jacob Fatu, maybe. Because I assume, like I said, first month of this is going to be like, a bunch of smaller guys, like say like JD or El Grande Americano, like some Danhausen. That would be funny as hell. I'll be honest. That type of stuff, and then he'll face a bigger guy, and then that will actually be like kind of a more competitive thing. I assume that they'll go down that route, but I feel like this should have been Obafemi's direction should have been beat Brock at Mania and then go into a storyline, which I think probably could have lasted maybe a month, and then he'll win King of the Ring and beat Roman at WrestleMania. Not WrestleMania, SummerSlam. I think that's what the direction of Oba should have gone. But I mean, they could do Oba beats everyone, then still wins King of the Ring and just completely dominates that tournament as well. They could do that. I don't know. I thought this was. I'm interested to see where this goes. Last thing I want to talk about is the Judgment Day. Just both segments they had on the show, the backstage segment and the tag team match. Raquel and Roxanne versus Bayley and Lyra. First, I want to talk about the backstage segment. Started with Liv and Roxanne talking to each other, kind of talking about Finn Balor leaving, and them kind of teasing Finn Balor kind of telling Roxanne to leave the Judgment Day. Roxanne was obviously like, hey, it's all good, we're fine, it's all good, whatever. Liv left. And then Finn Balor came in. It was basically telling her, hey, these people are kind of putting you down. I'm pretty sure he said that. Some along the lines of, hey, leave. Don't, get out of here like I did. And I think, one, I would be fine with this. I'll tell you right now. As someone who's a fan of Roxanne, she needs to be doing something. Like, in terms of all the three women in the Judgment Day, Liv Morgan's the world champion. Raquel is like a pretty big name. And Roxanne is the person taking pins. Like, her record last year was 15-30. She wrestled 45 matches and won 15 of them. I'm just saying, like, I feel like also it would be an interesting story if they did a pretty simple match of Finn and Roxanne versus Dom and Liv. I feel like this is something they should do. And I don't want it to be somewhere they drag it out for fucking 2 years like they did with Finn Balor. This should be Clash in Italy at the latest, probably. Probably should cost Liv at Backlash, probably, because I'm pretty sure. Her and Stephanie isn't confirmed for Backlash, but if they do have a future match, I guess when they do, I hope that they do something with that, honestly. But yeah, I want to talk about the match. This was in Roxanne's hometown, so the crowd was really, really behind her. They gave the Judgment Day the commercial break entrance, which is kind of funny. They gave Bayley and Lyra the entrance, but not the hometown person. I don't know. That was interesting. But a lot of chants for Roxanne, a lot of support, I guess. When she got the hot tag, the crowd went crazy. The crowd was really, loud for this, which I appreciated. It was a pretty simple match. The entire point of this was, Roxanne wrestling in her hometown. That was the entire point. Roxanne won, hit her finish, which I'm pretty sure is her first win in 5 months. I'm pretty sure. I don't. That's probably not true. But like, whatever. This was cool. I did enjoy how like loud the crowd was for this. Though they were really loud for this. I don't think the crowd tonight was that great. Other than this, like this was the part where they were most loud for, which I guess makes sense. But I don't know. Overall, this is cool.